During Princess Mia's visit to Anne's home, her world seemed to crumble upon realizing she wouldn't get to taste the sweets given to her by Esmeralda, Etoile, Greenmoon. Fortunately, to Mia's surprise, Anne's sister, Elise, rejected the icy dessert. Mia discovered that Elise was the author of the fantasy story that had captivated her in the previous timeline. Mia then proposed to Elise to become her royal author. Elise initially rejects the offer, thinking it's favoritism, but Mia's praise convinces her, causing Elise to contract Mia-itis. At the end of the year, Anne is invited by Mia to accompany her to school as her personal attendant. Anne, though doubtful of her own abilities, is deeply touched by Mia's trust. As Mia prepares for school, she faces the challenge of meeting her old nemesis, Tiona Rudolvin and Sion Sol Sunklin, but this time with Anne by her side.
There was a small country in the middle of all the kingdoms and empires. It was known as the Holy Principality of Beluga. It is the home of the Central Orthodox Church, the religion which had been observed by the continent since ancient times. Though it had no military power, it possessed an unparalleled amount of influence. To prove this, a certain school exists within its borders. St. Noel Academy was a super elite school that gathered noble and royal children from the land. Future rulers of neighboring kingdoms, which should have been hidden in an ivory tower, are instead sent into this academy to receive 6 years of education. From this fact alone, the authority that the principality commanded was obvious. And it was to this academy that Mia was headed this spring. After a week of bumpy roads in the carriage, St. Noel Academy came into view. Wow, this is amazing! Mia wore a tired smile as she watched, and marveled at the sights outside.
You're not going to last long if you keep that up, Anne. Don't wear yourself out.
But Mia-sama, just look! It's amazing! The sea! The sea!
Actually, that would be a lake.
The small forest they were currently passing through was filled with lush trees which opened up to a shimmering vast lake. Known for its abundant natural beauty, Lake Nulish occupies more than a third of the principality. At the center of the lake was a large island, on which a beautiful white castle-like school building stood. It was more like a straight out of fairy tale. Mia understood Anne's excitement upon such a sight.
As expected, after seeing it every day for almost 5 years, it gets a little old.
After all, she already attended this academy in the previous timeline. While she has no complaints about the academy's environment, it also no longer roused any excitement in her. I'm really impressed how calm Mia-sama is. Mia did not comment. She just smiled and closed her eyes.
These next 6 years are going to be crucial.
Before coming to this academy, Mia scrutinized her diary to figure out the best way to spend her time here. As a result, she decided to impose 2 rules on herself. Rule number 1. Avoid any danger. In particular, try to stay the hell away from people who had anything to do with her being sent to the guillotine. Rule number 2. In the unlikely event that the reforms of the empire failed and an unfortunate revolution occurs, then build a network of connections. To that end, she needs as many useful friends as possible. And that's it. The most important thing is to stay away from danger. As the old saying goes, better safe than without a head. Better safe than sorry. In her mind, she recalled the faces of the 2 people that led her to the guillotine. She didn't want to fight them, and it wasn't like she craved the sweet taste of revenge. In fact, she didn't want revenge. It didn't sound sweet at all. It sounded more like a pain, and that would cause her pain. Mia is, after all, a lazy pacifist, so she plans to stick to her first rule. Stay away from danger. If she is never acquainted with those 2, then they wouldn't have any reasons to hate her as well.
However, it is foolish not being prepared for an emergency. In that case, it is necessary to make connections inconspicuously. Who should I approach first?
Hey, what in the moons? Mia can hear the bitter voice of her coach driver in the front.
Is something wrong?
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Highness. Actually, I was about to move our carriage onto the boat to get us to the island, but some other kingdom got in front of us and took our spot.
And?
Normally, they should give the right of way to the Empire. Allow me to go and put them in their place.
I don't mind, really.
But then, the prestige of the Empire!
The prestige of the Empire would be better served if we don't go squabbling on such trifling matters such as the order of going into the boat.
The coach driver's words and actions made her want to squeeze her head in frustration. It was petty, frivolous, and honestly embarrassing. But the most irritating part is that Mia did the exact same thing in the previous timeline. To make matters worse, after all the commotion, her carriage fell into the lake. She couldn't help but cringe when she remembered the memory. It had been a terrible experience. She had been wearing her favorite stylish dress made with a lot of fabric, so when it got wet, it was very heavy. She almost drowned. After she managed to reach the shore, she had to endure the laughter of the students looking at her. Remembering, it was painful, but watching her own humiliating actions being replayed before her was even worse.
How terribly embarrassing. If I could, I'd slap some sense to my stupid past self.
Are you okay, Mia-sama?
Don't worry about me. It was a long trip, so I'm just a little tired.
With that said, Mia opened a window. The lakeside breeze was refreshing and seemed to comfort Mia. Anne looked up to the massive regal ship floating at the lake. It can clearly carry a dozen horse carriages without a problem. Mia-sama, why don't they just build a bridge to the island? That way, they don't have to carry carriages and people by boat.
It seems that there used to be a bridge before, but there were too many disputes over checking admission documents and confirming the accompanying servants.
No matter how wide or numerous bridges there are, they are always a cause for traffic jams. Since all the students arrive on carriages on the same day, it was easy to imagine the congestion. Furthermore, the ones riding those carriages are children of nobility or royalty, for whom the concept of waiting is totally foreign. A mishandled dispute must cause the head of a supervisor to fly, literally. Similarly, widening and adding more bridges would be quite impractical given how infrequent they're being used.
Even when they started carrying the carriages by boat, arguments still broke out over the assigned cabins.
The children of the royalty and nobles are people with very high pride. They would not allow for those families of lower or equal standings to have a better or bigger cabin than them. It was a nightmare for whomever was in charge.
It's terribly stupid to squabble over such matters.
Mia said an impressive statement as if oblivious to the fact that in the past timeline she made a huge uproar on who gets to the boat first. However, Anne, who does not know of such thing, as expected of Mia-sama, she has such a noble heart. It only made her royalty for her mistress stronger. Eventually they arrived to the port. Upon disembarking, it was time to say goodbye to the coach driver and the guard knights who accompanied them in the journey.
Dear knights, thank you for your hard work of guarding me. May you have a safe journey home. I pray for your well-being.
Yes, your highness. We and the whole people of the empire wish you well. May your life at the academy be filled with God's blessings. Mia once again gives a polite word of gratitude to the captain of the guard knight who bowed his head. During the revolution, while most of the imperial army betrayed the royalty, the imperial guard knights stayed loyal and gave up their lives to protect Mia and the imperial family. In other words, they were the kind of useful friends that she needs to stay on good terms with. Therefore, she treated them with utmost respect. Your Highness, the guard knights were impressed with the warm words that their princess showered on them. A few had quivering lips. It wasn't their fault, really. Everyone got a little emotional. After all, it was their first time hearing words of appreciation. Their work was to guard the imperial family, and sometimes they would even do assassinations. But that was considered part of their job. So whether they were injured or killed, it is not something that the ones that they are guarding are concerned with. It's just part of the job. Even so, the little princess in front of them was worried about them and prayed for their safe return. It wasn't much, but it moved them all the same. They set off back to the imperial capital with their hearts flaming with unwavering loyalty to their tiny master.
Well then, let's head to the academy.
Mia turned her eyes to Saint Noel Academy, which was going to be her battlefield. The island in the lake where Saint Noel Academy was located contained all the facilities necessary to function as an independent town. It was filled with various shops such as restaurants, clothing, tailors, shoe stores, blacksmith, jewelry stores, and stationery stores. What's more, all of them are super luxury stores to satisfy the taste of noble children. Wow! There's so many shops that look too scary to walk into.
That's right, but that's only true for the main street. There are cheap shops that are meant for the general public that are living on this island. The academy also has its own store that sells most daily necessities at very reasonable prices.
That is good, because I can go there to buy things that I need for myself.
So, Anne, could you make a survey of the shops here starting tomorrow?
Huh?
In particular, I want you to check out for shops that sell items of decent quality at reasonable prices.
But Mia-sama, I thought you said you'll have more than enough allowance to cover everything you need.
I will, and you're right. As a princess of the empire, there are necessary expenses to protect the prestige. But my allowance is derived from taxes, and I'd rather not squander something that comes from sweat and blood.
Mia-sama.
I can't waste money. I can't waste sweat and blood. Absolutely not.
For Mia, it wasn't a metaphor. How she spends money will literally affect her sweat and blood, especially how much she would shed at the guillotine. Every coin wasted was another step closer to it.
Half of my allowance will be sent to Ludwig. He can make good use of it.
Just then, Mia stopped in her tracks. Mia-sama?
Could that be...
Among the students in Mia's year, there was a boy who was extremely popular, Sion Solk Songland, the crown prince of Songland Kingdom, a kingdom that rivals the power and history of the Tearmoon Empire. He had silver white hair, cool clear eyes, a handsome face, and a sweet voice. He had an air of regality around him but had a friendly manner. At the same time, he had a strong sense of justice. His grades were excellent and his sword skills put most teachers to shame. He was the very definition of Prince Charming. And Mia, bless her young, ignorant heart, had fallen madly in love with him, or perhaps she had fallen into what she thought was love. In her arrogance, she believed that she was the only one suitable to be Sion's companion. As the crown prince of Songland, the only match could be Mia, the only princess of Tearmoon Empire. He was the man of her dreams. As such, she couldn't forgive the girl who became close to him, especially because she was the daughter of a poor imperial noble. The girl in question was Tiona Rudelbun, daughter to a poor noble whose territory is a farmland at the southern edge of the empire. Mia couldn't admit that a country bumpkin could manage to win Sion's heart, so she took it out on this girl. She teased her and joined the other noble ladies in harassing her. This harassment became a driving force for Tiona that pushed her to the forefront of history, and her leadership will make her a symbol of the revolution. She will be called a saint, and it will be under her that Mia will be executed by the guillotine.
I did something stupid.
After 3 years of life in the dungeon, Mia had been harassed in much the same way. She realized an essential truth, and that is, you reap what you sow. Mia-sama, look at that! Anne's voice pulled Mia back to the present. She looked at where Anne was pointing. In a street corner, Tiona was surrounded by a group of girls.
Ah, of course.
Mia notices that this was the exact same situation when she first met Tiona in the previous timeline. Daughters of powerful foreign nobles had been harassing Tiona over some problem.
I believe they were going on about how they had been slighted by her attendant or something.
In the previous timeline, Mia just happened to pass by, but she had chosen to give Tiona the cold shoulder. What should we do, Mia-sama?
What should we do? Isn't it already obvious?
She will stick with her rules that she came up with. Stay away from danger. At the same time, displaying any hostile attitude was out of the question. She didn't even want to go anywhere near them, just in case she would be labeled as a bystander. It was one of those situations where being neutral was difficult. In the eyes of the victim, that would just be enabling the bullies. Mia was thinking of going another route when she felt a chill on her spine.
What in the heavenly moons was that?
She paused. She couldn't help but feel that a terrible misfortune awaited her if she made a wrong choice at this time. Then a question popped into her mind.
That's right. I wonder why Anne asked me that question.
It would make sense if they were at a crossroad and they had to decide whether to go left or right, but in this case, Mia has no reason to help. Even if they came up from the Empire, it doesn't mean that she has to go out of her way and help a stranger. And yet, Anne still asked her that question. What should we do? Something told her she needed to do something about Tiona, as if the decision had already been made. Mia turned toward Anne again. When their gazes met, she knew she was right. There was an absolute certainty to her eyes, an unqualified trust. That confirms Mia's hunch. Anne was not asking whether they should help or not. It seems that helping Tiona was already a foregone conclusion. Anne's question was not, should we help? Rather, it was, what should we do to help? Anne never dreamed that her beloved Princess Mia wouldn't help someone in need.
So the decision has already been made, huh?
Mia was trapped in a difficult place. Should she help her enemy, or should she lose the trust of her most loyal subject? Shortly after, Mia concluded that now, at this time, she can't afford to lose Anne's trust.
I don't believe we have any other choice. Here goes nothing.
Yes, Mia-sama. After 3 years in the dungeon, Mia realized an essential truth, or she thought she had, but she didn't know that she understood only half of it. You reap what you sow. If you sow malice and evil, then surely you will harvest malice and evil as well. But the same is true for the opposite. If you sow kindness and goodness, then you will also harvest kindness and goodness. The full scope of this essential truth was, at the time, beyond Mia's comprehension.
Pardon me, what are you guys exactly doing here?
There were 3 girls surrounding Tiona. From the previous timeline, she recognized them as the daughters of a moderately prominent noble from a moderately noble kingdom. The emphasis here is in moderately. Huh? Who do you think you are?
Your Highness?
Hearing Tiona's voice, the trio fell silent and all color from their faces drained. Your Highness? You are your princess.
I do believe introductions are in order. Indeed. I am Mia Luna Tearmoon, the first princess of the Tearmoon Empire. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Allow me to repeat myself. What are you guys exactly doing here?
Well, we are... The complexion of the girls gradually turned paler. Mia was the princess of the great empire that they could not afford to make an enemy of. And right now, that same princess was clearly furious. Indeed, Mia was on the verge of blowing her lid, but not because of what those three were probably thinking. She was furious because these three girls had forced her into a situation where she has to help her nemesis. She glared at the three with hatred.
It seemed to me that you have been extremely rude toward one of my subjects.
No, not at all. We were thinking that, while she's an imperial noble, she comes from the outland. So we were teaching her the rules of polite society.
Do I need to repeat myself again?
Seeing that she had no choice, Mia had accepted that she would have to play the savior. However, it was a reluctant acceptance, and Mia was an extremely sore loser. After all, she hated losing, her life to the guillotine, that is. She hated losing so much that she was literally replaying the whole game. In an attempt to make herself better about this irritating turn of events, she kept talking.
You see, I love all my subjects equally, even the child of the poor slave on the streets, no matter who they are, no matter how powerless they are, no matter how insignificant they may seem, so long as they belong to the Empire, I will not turn a blind eye on any rudeness against them.
What she really meant was, I'm not helping Tiona because she's special or anything. In fact, she was trying to declare that Tiona was not any better than a child of a slave. In essence, she was really saying, listen here, you twit, I don't give three hoots about you. To me, you're not different from some miserable pauper. Capiche? Considering that Mia was already helping anyway, she should just have gone and went the full mile to help. But that would require Mia to be a good sport, and Mia was anything but that. Mia then turned to Tiona and smiled at her triumphantly.
Since I helped her, she cannot complain about what I say, can she?
Alas, Mia's smile was gravely misinterpreted. Tiona's family is a young noble family. Her grandfather was originally a leader of a group of farmers. After exterminating a group of bandits, he was awarded with a land and a title. He was therefore not born, but inducted into nobility, so they were considered an upstart noble. Even worse was that the region where they lived was incorporated into the empire much later than the other regions. As a result, they were discriminated against. Oftentimes, they were not even considered subjects of the empire, never mind nobility. They were insulted as descendants of serfs and second-class citizens. On bad days, they would even be called colony peasants. That's why she had to come to Saint Noel Academy. She studied hard, learned etiquette, and even mastered court swordsmanship. She did this all so that she could outshine those noble girls who made fun of her, or at the very least, not to be a target of their ridicule anymore. She wanted to be recognized as an imperial noble, an equal, to look into their eyes and let them know that they were seeing someone whose blood ran just as red as theirs. However, even from this first date, she was already harassed. This shattered her hopes. It seemed like no matter how hard she tried, there would be no change. But just when she was about to be swallowed in her despair, a certain person appeared. Mia Luna Tearmoon, the one who sits on top of the Tearmoon nobility. She strode in and proudly declared that she was one of her subjects, and not just that she would not forgive anyone who is rude to any of her subjects.
Huh?
For a long time, Tiona's mind was blank. She didn't know what was being said. She could hear what was being said, but the meaning eluded her. This was because she wasn't expecting any help. Never in her wildest dream did she think that she would be acknowledged as a subject of the empire. Then she blinked, and the figure of a girl before her came into focus.
Your Highness.
The girl's smile was gentler and more tender than any she had ever seen. Suddenly, she felt tears running down her cheeks, not because her efforts were recognized, nor because she was able to get back at her offenders. Rather, it was because of the promise, the assurance that no matter how powerless or insignificant a person that she might be, the young princess before her would love and protect her as one of her own. After spending her whole life trying to prove herself, this was the very first time that she felt secure. Relief poured out of her in a stream of tears that, despite her best attempt to stem, simply refused to stop flowing.
This is it for this video. We will continue with the story of the Guillotine Princess in the next episode. This was Brian and Marco from Jobless Weebs. Matane.